on this episode of Edge of the Web.
We're in a time where markets are fierce. If you're an agency, there's so much competition. If you're a SaaS, there's so much competition. People can copy your features. People can copy your messaging. People can copy your approach. But the thing that nobody can steal from you, nobody can take from you, is your proof. Nobody can take your success stories. They're yours. They're only yours. They'll always only ever be yours.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, alongside Tom Broadbeck, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Well, welcome back to the show, and thanks for joining us on our live stream every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're listening to us from the iTunes channels or the audio channels in Google Play and Stitcher and iHeartRadio, we got a lot of different audio broadcasts going out there. We'd certainly love for you to join us on our live stream and be able to ask questions of our guests. That's part of the entire live casting concept of Edge of the Web Radio that we enjoy doing every week. So thanks for joining us. We're broadcasting from Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. Every week we bring you the cutting edge information regarding digital marketing news, as well as marketing influencers from around the planet. So we certainly appreciate our audience and our listeners. We've been around doing this for about 8 years, and we're certainly, we're just getting our second wind, right, Tom?
Yeah, second wind.
Show 307, we're getting our second wind.
I was going to say there's a different kind of wind. Breaking wind.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, going to open that one up. Because we do have an alert on our phone that we're watching, and we're worried about a particular dog breaking wind today, right?
Yeah.
And breaking other things.
Yep. We're getting we're getting updates throughout the show.
All right. So Tom's dog, we're worried about Tom's dog, and his wife is texting him alerts of whether or not we've gotten our stool sample today, and we'll keep you abreast of the situation as it progresses. Learn more about our title sponsor, Site Strategics, who certainly is also inquiring about the poop alert. Hey, if you're interested in what we do over at Site Strategics, it is an owning company of Edge Media Studios. We do agile marketing, agile digital marketing, focused on results-based steerage. So we certainly would love to talk to you about what we can do for your organization. We'll be happy to sit down for an hour, sit down with a Skype session or a Zoom session and be able to talk to you about some of the things that we can see about your digital assets, and potentially could pull a couple quick action items out of that. Happy to discuss. Just go on over to sitestrategics.com. That's SITE strategics.com. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. I'm the owner of Site Strategics, as well as the founder of Edge Media Studios. We talk about why we do what we do on the show regularly, and I tell you what, it's really about just education, and not only for our audience's education about some digital marketing tactics, but also education for ourselves here at Site Strategics. That's it in the long and skinny. I'm not going to go deeper into it. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. So to my left is Tom Broadbeck. He's the director of digital media.
Hello.
Hello. And online with us from Canada, across the border, our north neighbors. We got Joe Klettke, founder of the Case Study Buddy. Joe, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. It's we're finally seeing the sun, and the snow is melting, and it's looking more like a habitable planet outside. So that's all positive.
Starting to, but I know you were concerned about the poo watch that we've got going on here, and Tucker's okay. But we're watching, and we'll keep everybody abreast of what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't my top priority in this moment. It's some really fascinating.
We got March Madness and Poo Watch, apparently.
Absolutely.
And I'm already 0 for 1 on my bracket. So.
Oh my gosh, is that good or bad?
It's not good, Aaron. It's not a good trend.
Okay, well, let's stop doing that.
I will.
Start picking the winners.
I will.
We're the Sparks family is starting to do the first time we're going to do brackets with the kids, right? Because we got 2 basketball players in the house, and they're loving it. So we're diving in. I know we haven't even done our brackets. I know I'm already past the line, so I got to win right now, right?
There you go.
I know exactly that I could be 100% as of today. But we're doing that with the kids, so they're probably going to beat the pants off of me, because unless it's like Hogwarts or Star Trek against Star Wars, I mean, I can own those brackets, truly. Obi-Wan will own Qui-Gon Jinn any time of the day. I tell you. You know?
There we go.
Come on, Joel. Give me some feedback here. Nothing?
Yeah, I'm just curious what kind of basketball team Hogwarts would have, right? What kind of rules there are, and like, are they allowed to use magic? I feel like that could make like a good spin-off. If Roland's listening, I'll write it for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They have the Quidditch World Cup, all right?
Yep.
Not at Hogwarts, but
Remember the guys that did basketball, the South Park guys that actually combined basketball, baseball, and what was the other sport? Basketball, baseball, and soccer, I think. If you haven't seen that, no?
I don't know.
I'm completely
we're way off. We're way off topic here.
All right, so we're all here talking about digital marketing news. So let's go ahead and do that. Joey, game for going through a few stories today.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so let's take you through the latest digital marketing news.
I was very excited to start my reportings.
This week's trending topics.
I didn't mention it's been a long day today, has it?
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Yeah, it has been a long day. But anyway, you know what? We're going to talk about news. So from The Verge, from Vlad Savov, Stadia is about the future of YouTube, not gaming. So Google's actually starting a revolution just to keep things as they are. Stadia, what's Stadia, Tom?
Stadia, Google announced this week, it's an online cloud-based gaming platform. So there's many companies. This has been like the holy grail of of gaming companies, is to get away from the console side of things and just have it all on the cloud. So Google thinks, many companies have tried in the past, but this technology is not there. But Google thinks they have the structure, they have the tech for this. Mm-hmm. So Google Stadia is essentially a cloud-based gaming streaming platform. Right. So they're getting back to their roots, apparently. I didn't know this, but YouTube started out as kind of a Twitch platform. People were streaming themselves as they were gaming, and people were watching that, and that's kind of how the evolution of YouTube began. And so they're kind of wanting to capitalize on that. The gaming industry is one of the biggest industries there is.
I can't tell. I can't walk in my house and not see one of my kids watching some other kid playing a game.
Yeah, and so that's how they're going to tap into that. So if you're watching somebody else streaming a game, you can. That streamer can invite you into their game. So if you're playing like Fortnite or something, and they can join. I don't think Fortnite. There's only one game that's been announced with this, but that's the goal, is that they can have you join in to them midstream. Or if you wanted to play that game on your own, you could click a button there on the YouTube channel, and then within 5 seconds, you get popped into that game.
Check this out. Surprisingly, I have a little bit of information about this.
Okay.
All right. So Steam, if you're familiar with Steam platform, Steam is the top streaming, the top cloud-based application gaming environment. And literally, they're making money hands over fist. Just recently, Epic Games came out and rolled out their new application or gaming cloud environment, where it literally took, Steam was making billions of dollars off of their purchasable games online. Epic just rolled out this, and there's also an emulation platform that's being experimented on, so you don't have to actually have your device that's loaded up with the top line graphic cards, the top line memory. You can actually literally tie into a virtual processor, a virtual gaming system through a cloud connection, where you can have the exact same rendering on your own machine and have all of the rendering actually happen on the cloud side of things. So this is huge, and Google stepping into this space. They're seeing everything. The writing's on the walls of a lot of companies that have already jumped in playing, pun intended, into this market. And you're literally going to see all gaming, all consoles disappear, and you're not going to have the hardware requirements that you do have right now to play a lot of these applications. Joel, take it away.
Yeah, no, I'm reminded of, I have the same feeling about this as I did as a kid when Microsoft got into gaming with consoles. Mm-hmm. Initially, it just felt so weird as a kid. You're like, why would I pay Microsoft for? And they had the competing side of it. I think it's really interesting. The play that they're making, and everybody I think is betting big on Google kind of being able to corner this just with the clout that they have. But I think it's important to remember, this is the same company that launched Google Glass, and that was a wonderful success, as we all recall, and we're still talking about it on Google Plus. So it's blown up. So, I'll be interested to see what they do. I like the move towards console-less gaming. I think it's really going to open things up for people. I think it's really going to change the landscape. But I am a little bit nervous about the company behind it and their reputation for absolutely peppering every good experience they've ever had with ads. So we'll see how that goes.
Monetization is going to be at the root of this. And I mean, the concept of being able to join your favorite gamer in that live session. One, I mean, they are live streaming inside of YouTube these different games, but literally be able to break off and go play that game, right? From that experience, I think is going to be huge. So, I mean, they're lining up for a
they're just another opportunity to collect more data about us.
You better believe it. You better believe
it. Your ads could be even more targeted to specific individuals if they know they like the Madden football game and they're always playing the Colts.
Right.
Colts can target those individuals based off of that info there. So
you better believe it. Oh my gosh, you just unpacked a world of hurt there, didn't you?
Data.
Something I was shocked to learn a while ago too is there's actually brokers who sell advertising space just in the game. So, for example, like in NHL 19 or whatever, if you want your logo on the boards, someone's entire job is negotiating that, which is just
isn't that messed up?
It makes sense when you think about it, but it's one of those things where it's just like, what? Like, where are we?
Well, I mean, you saw Ready Player One, right? And literally, it was just, I mean, the concept there of, hey, we still have 75% of the screen dedicated to ads. We can still get along, and still be able to give them 25% visibility, right? So, I mean, it's going to be there, and I mean, it's just that next virtual. But literally, that's the virtual placement of ads everywhere in a virtual environment. My gosh, what do you do with that? Well, we're already there anyway, so might as well just, resistance is futile, right?
Just dive in. And then go listen to our Mark Schaefer episode where he talks about how we're just ignoring ads altogether. And see if
exactly. There's a dichotomy there. All right, nothing against Mark Schaefer. He's awesome. All right, so over at Recode from Jason Del Rey, Instagram just took advantage of Amazon's biggest weakness. Now check this out. Instagram took a big step on Tuesday in its evolution into an online shopping destination, and for once, Amazon finds itself looking from basically a position of weakness. So Instagram announced that users of the photo sharing app will, for the first time, be able to start making purchases of some products directly within the app, capping off the social network's multi-year flirtation with becoming a real player in the online shopping environment. We knew Pinterest and Instagram were all going to be there at some point in time. So big name retailers like Nike, Zara, as well as the younger brands like Outdoor Voices and Warby Parker are among the 20 plus companies participating in this initial rollout. Now I got a question for everybody. I want to say it correctly. There are some sacrosanct social media platforms, and we're seeing people kind of dive off of the mass apps and the mass channels, getting into much more consumer loyalty based type of environments where there's not nearly as much ad exploitation. This makes sense from an advertising standpoint, but is Instagram kind of going to screw up their users' interaction by having such a commerce laden environment now?
I'm going to say,
go ahead, Joel.
I'm going to say no. For the reason is because I think this is whereas something like Facebook or what have you, it's not natural behavior. But I mean, when you look at the way people engage with Instagram and the way they engage with these Instagram celebrities and influencers and whatnot, I mean, we have things in our house right now purchased because my wife followed someone who owned said thing. I mean, the amount of baby stuff we have because someone else with a baby on Instagram posted that thing. It feels like a more natural dovetail. I do think they do need to be cautious with it. But if they can just kind of bake this in, insidiously behind the scenes and shorten that distance from desire to purchase, take out a step of having to leave Instagram, go look this thing up. I think it could actually do really well without pissing people off in ways that it couldn't have worked with, say, Snapchat or Facebook or what have you.
Now, are we in the area of these? I mean, yeah, you're going to have monetization, you're going to have ad placement, but the sensitivity of the online consumer and the online interactor. I mean, that has to be the governing principle here. You can't step over the line because you can see such a not only a market share, but just a loss and a mass exodus of individuals that don't, I mean, they vote with their feet, right, so to speak.
Yeah. I was going to pretty much say what Joel said. Instagram, you're on there because you're bored, right? You're on Amazon, you're there because you need something.
Right.
You're not bored on Amazon. Maybe some people are, but I'm not. And so if you're bored on Instagram, you're like, oh, that's a cool shirt or that's a cool thing, depending on the price of it. It would be nice to just buy it. I mean, that's the culture we're in now. I need it now type of thing, and I see it now, and I won't have to go through all these steps to get it. So, I mean, I think it's a good play for Instagram. It's not good for people's pocketbooks, but
No, talk about gratification. You do that, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, I see Joel's point from the influencer marketing side of things. If a Kardashian posts something and just buy now, I mean, that would just give them even more value for marketers or for businesses to use influencer marketing. And yeah, it'd be crazy to see how this evolves, but we'll see how Amazon. I've always thought it's kind of been Amazon's weakness. It's not a social network; it's a storefront.
Right. Yeah,
and people aren't going there when they're bored.
It's a research and
Besides
destination
Amazon Prime
place.
Video, but yeah.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Last article for this run through from Search Engine Journal from Matt Southern. Pardon me. Google says don't blindly stuff text into the e-commerce category pages. Now, I thought this was pretty well known, but Google's John Mueller actually cautions e-commerce site owners about adding unnecessary text to the category pages. Now, what are we talking about, Tom, from the category pages?
Yeah, so if you're an e-commerce website and generally the category pages, as you break down your products, you have different your products are into different categories. And a SEO play is to add content onto those category pages to help boost their value rather than just have pictures with minimal text describing what the product is. So Wayfair does a good job of it. I was just trying to pull up an example just on my computer so I can speak to it. So their furniture section, right, has furniture, wayfair.com/furniture, and generally at the bottom there's a chunk of content, a couple paragraphs talking about furniture. Except this page that I just clicked on doesn't have that. There it is. There's a little paragraph of furniture. Down there at the bottom just gives more context to what the page is about rather than just images and product names.
And we know from our own SEO tools regularly, we're seeing these category pages as thin content pages, and we get flagged for those pages as well. So content on the page can be a good thing, right? But at the same time, just blindly stuffing content in there, that's what Google's talking about. You got to be careful because they're certainly scrutinizing that. If you're trying to anchor some good SEO content, make it usable for the consumer, right? As opposed to just keyword stuffing. Joel, what do you think?
Can I just say that the fact that this even has to be said made my soul die a little bit? Like, as a guy who writes for a living, like, you could literally replace anything in that sentence and it should apply as general good advice for life. Like,
Amen.
Don't blindly stuff anything into anything. I don't think it's ever
Unless it's meat into meat.
Oh, yeah, you better believe it. Have you ever experienced a bacon taco before?
I mean,
we'll talk later.
Bacon tacos aside, we're almost due for a Poop Watch update in a second here, but like, honestly, that this even has to be communicated and that somebody thinks this is news, to me, just shows how far we have to go, especially in my industry. Like, the fact that people have to stop and go, hey, maybe what I'm putting down there should be useful. Hey, maybe blindly stuffing text into places is not a good strategy in the year 2019 is just soul crushing for me.
It's for the new ones that they haven't got the memo yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That is sad. And I don't know if that was a bit more of a grandiose tongue-in-cheek type of reference there for a very, very important thing is that you don't game the system. And e-commerce, I mean, they're on notice. Especially in the sheer fact that e-commerce content is so blindly repeated on site after site after site for all the different affiliate e-commerce sites of distributors. I mean, that's a challenge in its own right. So Yeah, don't do it.
There we go.
There we go. All right. But what we do want you to do is join the newsletter from Edge of the Web. Every week, we're sending out some great content, interviews that we had with our guests, who's going to be upcoming on the show, some of these news articles, as well as maybe a tip or two coming out of our team here at Side Strategics. So it's free of charge. We will never use your email for anything except sending over nuggets of digital gold. So text to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk. Don't do it while you're driving. And we can get that sign-up process going, or go over to edgeofthewebradio.com, sign up right there at the header, and you'll be part of the family, right?
That's right.
That's it's all about sharing. Come on, get on the newsletter. Okay, so how is Tucker doing?
I haven't got an update, so we're still waiting.
We're tense. So
Yeah.
this could be the time.
Yeah.
All right. So follow all of our trending topics over at edgeofthewebradio.com. And hey, let us know how we're doing on that side of the fence. But let's deep dive now with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Joel Klettke, founder of Case Study Buddy.
Joel Klettke, he's coming from Calgary, Alberta. Joel, let's interview. We are interviewing, so we've been able to connect that, right? Let's introduce you to our audience. Joel is a conversion-focused copywriter. I just want to repeat that again. A conversion-focused copywriter. I just love that phrase. And strategist who has worked with clients like HubSpot, WP Engine, SafeLight, and Ion Interactive. Joe is also the founder of Case Study Buddy, where he actually helps companies tell their story and prove their worth through the use of case studies. And that is a very unique talent and a very coveted talent, actually, all things being equal, because case studies are the bane of content creation, right? At the same time, they're so useful and they're so important from a conversion standpoint. So, Joel, give us an idea of your backstory. How did you get into digital marketing to begin with?
Yeah, so it all starts with industrial labeling machines and me flunking out trying to sell those B2B on the phone. Came home dejected from the other side of the country and thought, what am I going to do? Got a call from a digital marketing agency and had a chance to be an in-house SEO with them for a while. So did that for about 5 years, and then always loved writing, never saw a career in it until I was in that agency environment and suddenly saw, hey, someone has to write these websites, someone has to write these ads, someone has to write this content. And this was right around kind of when I was realizing all this was so important, 2011, 2012. And so by 2013, I saw the whole industry turning their attention towards content and copy being important. Struck while the iron was hot, went out on my own. And that kind of got me to now. From there, started studying the conversion side of things and Joanna Weeb's work at Copy Hackers and Peplaya and all of those people at Conversion Excel. And it married the two things that I really love and enjoy, the creative side of writing and the analytical side of kicking your competitors' asses. And I put them together, and now I've got a career out of it. And the case studies bit came a little bit after that. But that is kind of the 30,000-foot view of how I got into this mess.
Yeah, that's a well-honed delivery right there. Especially, you can tell he's a copywriter. But at the same time, throwing that laying down the gauntlet to other competitors, and that's a rarity when it comes down to copywriters. So getting into case studies, that's where you're actually going toe to toe with other companies, right? And when it gets down to it, if the buyer is going through their comparison of different companies online, ultimately they're going to look at, have you done this, what I need before for somebody else, right? So then you have, how do you actually showcase your portfolio? How do you showcase what you've done for other services, right? It's another factor of the buyer's journey, and it's a very important factor because that's a big decision-making space right there, right?
Yeah, I mean, we always try to tell clients, and especially, when I get on stage, people are asking about in conversations, like, we're in a time where markets are fierce. If you're an agency, there's so much competition. If you're a SaaS, there's so much competition. People can copy your features. People can copy your messaging. People can copy your approach. But the thing that nobody can steal from you, nobody can take from you, is your proof. Nobody can take your success stories. They're yours. They're only yours. They'll always only ever be yours. And so especially now, what we're seeing is as the competition heats up, as the consumer has more of the power in the relationship, and it's been that way for a long time, having these stories, being able to demonstrate, being able to showcase that is becoming less of kind of a nice to have and more of an essential, here's how we compete, here's how we differentiate it yet. And the smart companies are starting to really sit up, take notice of that, and go from having this as one small footnote on their content calendar or a largely ignored function of marketing and sales. And they're starting to prioritize these because they're seeing, hey, they matter a lot and they've got a ton of utility too.
Yeah, I like that. The nobody can steal your proof. That's a great thought there.
Absolutely, and that's what it gets down to is that you can spin anything any way, but you can't claim another company's successes, right? So there's a lot of ways to promote case studies, but let's get back to the basics here, because like I introduced at the beginning, case studies are difficult. Now, there's a reason why they're difficult. So can you, well, maybe not for you, but certainly for a number of us out here, can you let us know why are they challenging to write content for and create?
Yeah, I think anyone who thinks writing case studies is easy has never tried to do one. And they're complicated because there's a lot of moving pieces. There's the brand and your goals and your strategies, but then there's a client you have to get buy-in from and get them to agree to be interviewed and manage that. And then they're political. Different people in the same organization might want different things or prioritize different elements. And then there's the legal side of it, making sure you've got release and that you can actually put this out into the world and that you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. And so the more that you do these, I've seen things doing case studies that I never thought I would see before. We just had a situation where, we typically do phone interviews and you think, yeah, this is the best way to do it, or, a video interview. But we came into a situation where a client's customer absolutely refused to be featured unless the only way we conducted the interview was through chat. And so there's stuff out there that you can't even account for. So there's just a lot of all this politics, the mechanics of it. And we haven't even talked about the actual storytelling and telling a compelling story and writing the thing in a way that people want to pick up and read. So there's way more that goes into these than I think most people realize when they set out to do them.
No, you're right, and that you mentioned one major area which is the interview process, right? Because that's a big ask of a client is, hey, not only did we do a good job, but we want you to basically publicly claim that we did a good job in one way, shape, or form for you. So they have to be bought into. And they need to be a champion of your work, which they certainly would be if you won the day for them, right? But at the same time, they're sticking their brand out there as brand equity. So there's this relationship that has to be formed there, right? So yeah, all that, now that's an important factor right there. But at the same time, collecting the information and then be able to present it in a way that consumers want to read it. Can you unpack that right there?
Yeah. So, let's start with the fact that case studies are not about your company, really. They're not about your product. Your product's not the hero. They're human success stories. It's somebody in an organization had a challenge. You came in and helped them solve that challenge, but they're the hero. They're the hero for having chose you. They're the hero for having gone through that process. The goal of a case study is to tell a very human, relatable story so that a lead can see their problems, their challenges, and the results they want and feel like they can be the hero too. And so when it comes to capturing this information, I think that's where people fall on their face. They do it in a really heavily scripted way, or they don't do it at all. So they try to write these in isolation. They don't involve the customer, which is a surefire way to fail, because how can you have a customer success story without the customer? But capturing this information, you need to capture the arc, not just the impact statement, which is nice. Like, oh, we saw a 50% lift. Yeah, that's great. That's not a case study. A case study has to take someone from where they were and the tension of that and the pain of that and the uncertainty and whatever it may be of that situation, and walk someone through in a very real, visceral, emotional way where they wound up and how they got there. And the best case studies that I've ever seen, and what we, when we're working on, what we're continually aspiring to do is to make these less of a business doc and less of a static, we did this, then this, then this, and capture more of the actual human story and that trajectory. So you have to turn your interviewee into a storyteller. You have to ask about their experience, not just their opinion, not just the results, but what those results meant. And then put it together in a way people want to read. So I just pretty much describe like the ocean, try to compress to a raindrop, and we can dig into specifics of that too, and get in some of the in the weeds, tactical, go do this type of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, well said. And there's so much in what you said. So what type of planning should be done before even starting a case study? Because you're talking about the emotional impact, and there's such a marketing play there, as such a authentic play there from the communication side of things. What has to start? What does the business have to do just to even start, even begin the process?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, first you have to define, well, what kind of stories do we need to tell? So you've got objectives. You've got, whether it's you want to promote a new product, whether it's you want to promote a new part of your service, you want to reach a particular person in a particular role, you want to grow into an industry. You have to stop and define, like, what is our goal here? Why are we trying to capture these stories? Because that's going to define for you who you need to talk to. It's going to make a difference when it comes to what type of story you need to tell in terms of, well, what problem do we want to highlight in this story, and what kind of client or person in our client list or customer base had this type of problem. So you don't just want to tell any story. Yes, some social proof, some case studies will always be better for you than none. But what type of story aligns with where you as a company are trying to go and the objectives that you have? And when you define that, then it becomes a lot more obvious who would make sense to approach to try to get them to take part. So it all starts there.
So you're defining objectives of what you want to accomplish, right? But the case study is about the client and what you're able to accomplish for them. So connecting the dots there, because you're trying to accomplish something that's going to make an impact to your marketing initiatives, right? But you have to get yourself out of your shoes and look at how important it was for the client that they had. So there's a jump there of your initiative, your goal set, right? And really kind of putting that as a second player compared to telling the story for your client, right? Right.
I mean, let me give you a tangible example. Let's say that you are an agency and you really want to highlight the fact that you feel like you've got really great customer service, but everybody and their dog on their website says, we take the time to get to know you. So it's totally worthless to put that. Now you want a story that demonstrates that part of what you do. So that gives you at least some idea categorically. You can think through, okay, who do we know that we've provided a good experience for? What kind of stories are we aware of now? And you can also, if you have no clue, then you can do some discovery with that intent. You can ask your customer base questions to find out, hey, who's got a story, who's had an impact that aligns with the thing that we're trying to put out there. Or same with a product. If you're trying to promote SEO, then it doesn't make sense to publish PPC case studies because that's never going to get you where you want to go. So it's about putting some meaningful boundaries on the type of story you want to tell, the type of criteria, aligned to that goal. Once you know that, it's much easier to then go and explore the ins and outs of somebody's stories. And you can still be surprised by what they say. It doesn't mean that it's now robotic and you lose that human element, but you want to look for those people who have a story that kind of fits with the narrative that you're trying to put out there, or that the areas that you're trying to grow in as well.
Oh, excellent. So talking about the questions, right? So you've identified that particular service or that particular initiative, and learning from your clients. Is the inquiring of case studies has an additional benefit. It has an incredible customer service benefit as well, doesn't it? Just picking up the phone and talking to these different clients.
Yeah. I mean, not only do you learn you get this outside perspective, the customer's perspective of what you're doing well and what their experience was like. Oftentimes, if you ask the right way, especially if it's not you asking, because it's really hard to go to a client and say, hey, can you just praise us for a while, or like be really objective about our relationship while I'm sitting across the desk from you? That's hard, right? That's why a lot of people choose to have a third party come in and do this, because it takes the pressure off of everybody and people can be more honest. But you discover things that you knew about yourself, but things that you maybe didn't know. We have gone in to do case study interviews and found out that the person that we're interviewing, who for some reason agreed to be in this case study, is actually not happy and thinking about leaving. It does happen. It sounds outlandish. You're thinking that's an edge case. I've seen it multiple times. But what's great about these interviews, and we can get into some of the specific questions you ask, is you start to capture in the customer's own words what their experience is like, what they appreciated about that, what surprised them about that. And that is invaluable ammunition. As a guy who works on, on the other side of my career, I'm working on conversion copywriting, I'm working on landing pages, I'm working on ads and that type of thing. Knowing how to take your customer's words in the way that a customer who loved the experience talks about the outcome that they got, or the pain that they had coming in, or why they chose you, taking those words and bring that into that other side, it's invaluable for that area too. It's also invaluable for things like onboarding new hires. If you can show them a transcript or a video, or show them a case study of someone talking about what they love about the company, suddenly you've got this great culture piece where it's like, this is what we're about. This is how we want to make people feel. This is the way we do what we do. And it's not just coming from some dry, stuffy manual. It's, hey, here's an actual customer talking about why they chose and stuck with us and the result we got and why that mattered and made a difference to them. It's a huge cultural asset too.
No, it's fantastic. So the case study, and this is the thing, outside of any other type of content, this has so many different impacts internal of your organization as well as external of your organization. It's a very unique product or production, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I tell clients, and people often, I love sharing this because a light bulb tends to go on. People come in thinking that they want a case study so they can relegate it to a sad little corner of their website in the resources section, go, hey, we did case studies. But when you start talking with them about all the ways that you can use this, it literally can be used across the entire funnel. You can use a case study to attract leads and get them interested and have the opportunity to nurture. You can use a case study to actually nurture them towards purchase. You can use a case study to help get an upsell. So you can show them, hey, here's someone who made that decision to buy this, premium version and what they got out of it. You can use a case study to win back a dead lead. So with software, somebody's left, they tried the product, maybe it wasn't a fit at the time, you need a natural in to talk to them again. Send them a case study that, hey, here's someone that's kind of like you that gave us a second try or gave us a try and this is the outcome they got. Would you like to have a conversation? There's just so much utility externally and then internally with these campfire stories, we call them, where again, it's kind of rally around the campfire and let's talk about our success. Let's talk about what customers see us as. There's opportunities for, voice and tone and all of it. So it will never not be beneficial to talk to your customers, but even more so when it's in such a structured and documented way.
Yeah. So let's talk about the discipline of that intake. So asking questions, you can certainly ask a number of bias questions that are self-fulfilling in one way, shape, or form. And I'm sure.
How awesome am I?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me in 3 words.
So I'm sure you've been given a number of hey, yeah, ask them this set, and you're just shaking your head, going, okay, are you a freaking narcissist or what, right? So
Yeah.
what kind of questions should you ask during a customer interview for a case study?
So I'm going to start real quick by saying your mentality going in, there's 2 things to keep in mind is as much as you're there to talk, you're much more just there to listen and probe and explore. And the second thing is that your goal in a case study interview is to make the person you're interviewing a storyteller. Again, you don't ask questions about opinion, you're asking about the experience. So some of the questions that we really like. So let's start from the top when we're talking about what was going on before. So one of my favorite questions I learned from Joanna Wiebe is literally, what was going on in your business that sent you looking for a solution like ours or like X company? You can also ask them, and I love this question. I recently got the wording from a peer named Jen Havis, who's great on customer research. When did you realize the old way of doing things wasn't working? And in just a few words, they're going to open up. That's an emotional question, but it's also like, it's real hard to tell people, well, what other alternatives did you consider? And go, I did this and this. It's not that interesting. But when you ask them, when did you realize the old way wasn't working? Suddenly, it's a storytelling question. They let it, they go, oh man, it was so frustrating. We were trying to do this. It wasn't working for that reason. And with one question, you get this super loaded response. I love those questions where you ask one thing and you get 5 minutes of dialogue from the person back. So then when we're talking about their experience of the solution, the most important question you can ask is why, or why did that matter to you? So when they're talking about, what the experience was like, saying, why was that important to you? Why did you value that? Right? You have to kind of be like the annoying 6-year-old in the van on the way to McDonald's. Why, right? But asking why gives your lead, because keep in mind, you're nervous. Most people are nervous running an interview. It's not comfortable for a lot of us, but your interviewee is nervous too, because they want to make you look good. They want to avoid saying the wrong thing, putting their foot in their mouth. So asking why is like a second chance. It's like a chance for them to go, oh, I wish I'd also said this. So asking about the experience, two questions I really like are, what surprised you about that? What surprised you about working with us? And then the other question I also really like to ask them is, where could we have done better? What could we have changed? Because
I was going to ask you if that's part of that, because it certainly would be a consumer service a gold mine there. Forgive me. Keep on going.
No, it is a gold mine, because too many people think case study interviews are only about what went right. But it's good to talk about what went wrong. And it's good to actually write about in the case study what went wrong, where you had to pivot or adjust, or the strategy didn't work, so you did this instead.
Right.
That's a more believable story than, hey, we're all heroes and everything was dandy. And then the final thing for the results section, when you're talking about the impact, the biggest mistake people make is they only talk about the what. It's like, we saw a 50% lift. And like, that's very impressive. Most people go, hooray, we did it, and they stop. The question to ask is, what did that mean? What did that mean for that person? What did that mean for their team? What did that mean for the business? Because a 50% lift is impressive, but if that 50% lift in, let's say, sales or conversions meant that they could hire new staff, or they could expand into an international market, that's a way more compelling story than just a dead end metric. So you've taken that dead end metric and made it all the more compelling by adding some story to it, adding some why. So those are some questions we like to ask. We follow a BDA format: before, during, after. And it's important to go in having a question set, but to let the conversation go where it may, and to reel them back in if they get back off track, or if they get off track, but to always bring it back to before, during, after, because that's a narrative arc, and you're making them a storyteller as you do that.
So I'm sure that as the consumer or the client starts getting a understanding of the pace and the cadence of things, I mean, it is truly a deft talent to be able to unpack that and allow them to be able to really be forthcoming, because it's still is, they know that they're in the pocket to create value and marketing opportunity for your client, right? So, I mean, you've got a talent to be able to open to get them to share the information. What do you do with the information if it comes back negative? Like you said, there's a number of scenarios that oh my gosh, they're finding out some information. How do you convey that to the company that's hiring you for the case study research, and what can they do to not only take that in internal and use that information, but how can they help solve that frustration of the surprise frustration? Have you seen a scenario in which it went really well for organizations?
Yeah, we've seen rescue operations where they found out, hey, this is something we didn't know they were thinking about leaving or considering other options. And because we could ask them, oh, why is that? Or, what would you improve, or where could they do better? People tend to be, by the time that we're asking those improvement questions, their guard tends to be down. We've already talked so much about the feel good stuff, but in the event that something negative comes back, we really operate with kind of an honesty as the best policy. We don't try to soften the blow.
Sure.
We don't try to solve the problem for them. Say, oh no, I'm sure they meant that. That is suicide as a third party. We just communicate it to them. The client voiced this concern. They said that this was something they could see you working on. We recommend that you surface this, internally to whoever is the best person to help. And we try to, where everything else is really emotional with what we're trying to do, we're trying to capture an emotional story. That piece, we keep emotions out of it. because we provide a transcript, we provide a recording. They can go back if they want to listen to it. They can hear it for themselves.
Sure.
But when we're communicating like, hey, there's a problem, we're not trying to induce panic. We're not trying to make someone freak out, but we say, hey, this is something they mentioned, and it's a priority, and we'll flag it. We always send a transcript, a recording, and then a summary email, and that'll be in the bullets. And that summary is, this is something that should be addressed. And at the end of the day, our job is to capture the best possible story. If there's not a great story, that's not our fault. Our job is to capture the honest truth about that relationship.
I mean, even the kind of like Inception, even the execution of a case study could be a case study into itself by the company learning more. And if there's something screwed up, they use that as a rescue process. So kind of like a egg within an egg kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gets very meta.
One of our stream watchers, Sherman Morrison, actually asked a question. How about how would you go about a process of just how to choose a case study if you have a bunch of potential options?
I can promise you that unless so this is my bias speaking, but you might think you have a whole bunch of options, and maybe you legitimately do. They've all signed up to say, yes, hooray, we're going to do it. The way that we do it, and when we help clients who are looking to kind of filter through and find great stories, is we typically use a short survey, and we kind of trying to think of the word, but pre-screen those people who are willing with a couple very fast questions. The same kind of thing we would use in a live interview, but we send a very short survey. When I say short, we're talking 1 to 3 questions to capture the impact, to capture kind of who they are. Whatever we've defined in that first stage is integral to our strategy. We kind of define that first, and then we use a short survey to identify, okay, this has the best impact, or this has the best story that we can tell, and we go about it that way. I mean, there's other factors, like if someone is going to leave their position, move on to another company, and the time is limited, okay, you might mix that up. But generally, you're always starting from strategy and going, okay, well, who aligns best? And a really quick survey is often a good way that doesn't burden you, doesn't burden them, to capture some of the details. And you can just bake it into being part of the process, saying, hey, we're just trying to, queue up some interviews. And as part of that, we're trying to get some hints into the stories being told.
Oh, very good. Very good. Conversely, so you're in the process, you're queuing up your structured questions, you're dialing in for their why, not your why, and on top of that, dialing into what the impact was, as opposed to just the metric that was performed or was measurable. What topics and questions should be avoided during a customer interview?
No one's ever asked me that, but I appreciate that you did. This is the first time. Yes, no questions are, again, they're dead ends. Any question that a person can't elaborate on, any question that is a single word answer, should not be asked. When it comes to asking about results and metrics, it's a sensitive topic. You need to be gentle with it. If the first time your client hears that you're looking for a specific metric is on the call, you blew it. They're going to be surprised. They may be uncomfortable. They may feel like you're asking them for something they didn't expect. So I would say avoid questions about hard metrics if you haven't preempted them by sending them an email saying, hey, here's the type of thing that we're looking for. That gives them some homework so they can actually go and pull the numbers for the call.
Yeah.
Or they can communicate, hey, we're not comfortable sharing that, and that's okay. So that it's more of a sensitive one. It's not like an absolute no. But yes, no is pretty much the main one. And then you just want to avoid questions that sort of open the floodgates where they're opinion questions. So I'm not a big fan of asking questions like, what do you think the company should do next? Or like, would you buy this thing if they put it out there? Because the answer is really unreliable. So any question that isn't rooted in their experience, we tend to steer clear from, because it's not good fodder for a case study.
Oh, very, very good. Very good. Hey, we got another question from the live stream. I'm just apologies up front here. Ronan O'Celia Chair. I'm going to go with it. And apologies if I didn't get it right. How many words should a case study be? They say, I presume people hit a wall with how long they want to read or something like that.
Yeah, so the fantastic, wonderful thing is that the myth that people don't read is exactly that. It's a myth. People read things as long as they're interesting to them and they see themselves in it. Now, interestingly, DocSend did a huge study of something, I'm going to butcher the actual metrics, but it's in the millions of pieces of content And DocSend has the ability to look at how people actually engage, how much of it they actually read and pay attention to. And the good news is case studies are the highest performing asset by orders of magnitude. Like people finish these things like more than white papers, more than ebooks, more than blog posts, more than any other type of content asset DocSend saw. They actually recommend, and I'm going to provide the link to you guys to share later on if you put it in the show notes because it's escaped me right now. But they also looked at the ideal length. It is specific to situation, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I believe what they found is that things really cap out like around 5 pages. Like if you're longer than that, and keep in mind, these are like designed pages, not just raw text, like chunks of text. But around 5 pages, things tend to drop off. I know there's been other studies, I think, where they said it was around 2. It depends on the use case, but I would say like if you can keep it to somewhere between 2 and 5, and if the content is compelling, you're doing well. I want to quickly elaborate on my point about use case. There are situations that call for a very detailed study. There are situations that call for what we call a narrative study, and that's where someone really wants the details on the how. They're really interested in digging into that solution section in a way you can't capture in a single paragraph and bullet points. I mean, it's one thing for a design company to say, we did customer research and then we did this and then we did that in bullets. And that's enough for somebody who's just casually browsing. But for someone seriously interested in the process, that's not going to cut it. So when you have a lead who is in the consideration stage, they're more aware, they're very interested in the process, you need that sort of narrative type study. If you're doing something, say like an ad though, you probably want to have something shorter that you're pushing to that they can read, get the gist of, and then you can push to download the full study if they're interested in it. So it is specific to use case. The other thing I'll say too is if you're doing something like cold outreach with email, shorter does tend to work better if the prospect's never heard of you before, because again, you're working with limited attention budget. If you send them a 2,000 word piece, they may read it, they may not. But if you send them a 500 word piece, your odds improve.
Yeah, it's about the intent of that buyer or that consumer of how you kind of piecemeal it through. So it could very well be a couple stops along the way, picking up more information about that case study. But to your point about the most consumed content, I would bet I bet his dog who hasn't pooped yet on the fact that they return back to that case study again and again and again and again. It is a factor of review for potentially doing business with whatever company you're looking at, and that it's a benchmark that you want to refer back and connect to that potential story, right?
Yeah, which is also why it baffles me that so many people don't put calls to action at the end of their case studies. Yeah. They have these beautiful stories, and then it's kind of the end. It's like, what now, right? At that point, your lead is like, this is good, this is good, this is good. Nothing. So, have a call to action, have a button. If you have PDFs, hey, plop a button in that sucker and push them to whatever the most appropriate, way to contact you or way to get started might be. Have a context specific call to action. If you have talked about a certain pain or a certain solution or a certain type of role in the study, hey, maybe the call to action should be about that. But push them from the case study to take action. And that's also why I'm generally not in favor of gating case studies. People always want to lock them up like we want the email and then we can nurture them. Let the case study do its job. Put a call to action in that thing. If they don't contact you after reading that sucker, they're never going to buy from you anyways.
There you go. The case study is also could be used as a screening technique for potential clients that aren't ready to be able to engage in the full manner of services that you provide. So there's that. I wanted to make a stop along design because as much as you've got the data, the content, yeah, you've wordsmithed it from a conversion standpoint, but as well as an impassioned and an authentic standpoint of what the story was. Your attention from the online browser of this content is still, you got to hook them visually. I keep on thinking about infographics as the guiding factor of case studies. So give us some words of wisdom on that side of the fence.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is an area that is a little more challenging for me because I'm a words guy and I know what I like in a design when I see it, but it's been hard for me to learn. And we've gone through iterations of our designs, and And there's lots of things. I mean, how do you have, for example, an infographic with a client where the metric or the KPI doesn't exist? You can have a great case study that has no success metric. It can be super persuasive, but there's no, hey, we saw a 50% lift, because that's not how those relationships work in that way. So what we've generally found, some little tips, some things that we've found to work quite well, in longer case studies, having a summary bar on the side that is highlighted in a different color. So if I just want the gist, if I am somebody who only scans or only has a minute, I can scan that side, I can read it clearly. White space, massively important. It sounds like the most banal thing, but if you cram big chunks of text or big heavy paragraphs, the odds that someone is going to read that go way, way down. For communicating results, yes, infographics can be fantastic. The thing that I think is tough that people often miss is they want to have this like grand reveal at the end where it's like, we did all this work and then ta-da, here's the result in the beautiful graphic. Spoil the ending. That's what people get into case studies for, is like, oh, that's a nice result. That's something I want. So have that nice, beautiful infographic, have some sort of visual call to results early. Don't wait until the end to go ta-da. Show them, hook them there. And then you can always have something more in depth later on, a more detailed infographic. But design is an area that we continue to try to get better in. It's not where my expertise is. I know there's still room for us to improve, but the more visual you can make these, the better. The other thing that really matters is headshots. So if you're featuring people in the study, try to get a headshot, try to humanize this thing. Again, they're human stories. We want to imagine the person who's going through it.
That's really insightful right there. Is you tend to forget that. You see a lot of case studies that have some logo pictures and different business pictures and industrial genre pictures, but you really don't see that person. And that's really that brand equity that's happening there, is that they're putting their name on it by their visual representation. And that absolutely would go a huge way for not only hooking the person, but also understanding that this is a real testimonial, a real case study, as opposed to something that's fabricated. Because we have this perspective of just being spun all the time, right? And you got to have some. You're certainly going to look at a case study and evaluate it. Are they really just pitching me, or is this something that they actually did? And if you get that mugshot right there, I mean, yeah, you can always get stock mugshots, but who would do that?
Can I just say too, I mean, I guarantee someone's listening to this and they're on the verge of tuning out, because like, there's no way we can't, our industry, our company's too big, our clients are too big. No one's ever going to let us do this. It has to be anonymized. How do you handle that? And we have come up, because the ideal is you get a person with a name and a face and willing to be identified to do this thing, as opposed to a person without a face, which I guess would be horrifying for everyone. I mean, that's the ideal, right? But what if you can't? And we get asked this all the time. Like, what if we can't name the client? Should we do case studies at all? Yes, there are ways to navigate that so it's still believable. For example, pseudonyms, gender neutral pseudonyms. Hey, we'll give you a name that isn't yours in exchange for still being able to use your quotes, right? Because the quotes are the thing that make it real. If you've got customer quotes throughout and they're spelling out their experience, you've got to be a really dedicated scam artist to make that sort of thing up. And there's always something that smells kind of off about an ungenuine quote from somebody. Like if it's overly glowing, you're always like, I don't think that guy's real. So, I mean, pseudonyms is one example, but if you can only anonymize a case study, don't turn it down. Just capture the story and do what you can to protect that company's identity. Still use it. If you can't get a headshot, that's okay. There's other forms of credibility you can bring in, so it's still a compelling story.
No, very good. Very good. We certainly want to be respectful of your time here, but there's so much inside case studies that's incredibly valuable information. How can you repurpose what the case study brings you? Obviously, we've talked about how the cultural impact internally can be incredibly valuable for sales and customer service and what have you. But from a marketing standpoint, this is just gold. How do you repurpose it into different lanes and to be able to bring it all back to one? Well, maybe you can't, but one performance metric of how well that case study performed.
Yeah, I don't think there is necessarily one metric, because you're using them in different channels, different stages of the funnel and that sort of thing. But I mean, let's break it down. And this is just what I'm sharing off the top of my head. One case study can be turned into a guest post or series of guest posts, an email or a series of emails, cold outreach, You can turn it into, you can pull testimonials out and use them as proof points on a landing page or on a website. You can turn a case study into a summarized, you can have really short case study and attach it to RFPs and send that out, because hey, when that RFP gets passed around, so does your case study. Not bad. You can turn a case study into, as I mentioned, win back emails. You can include case studies in your onboarding sequence. You can use case studies to upsell. You can repurpose a case study into a slide deck, so have a really short version. Take that into pitch meetings. You can print off case studies and have them as leave behinds, as at trade shows and exhibitions, at events. You can use case studies as direct mailers if they're written the right way. So you can actually just mail them out to prospects with a little bit of preamble and say, I've got this story I want to share with you. You can make it really compelling. So, I mean, and that's just the stuff that's off the top of my head. We haven't even touched on how you can use case studies in ads and Facebook ads. We haven't touched on video at all, which opens up a world of possibilities.
Oh my Lord, yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many ways to repurpose one story, and that is why it's so able to be repurposed. Is it's a story. That's what it is. You can take one story and use it in a lot of different environments, depending on who you're talking to, who you're sharing it with, how you're sharing it with, what you're trying to get that person to do or know or understand. I mean, I've seen people use case studies as a way of bringing their process to life. So instead of having a stale process section, they say, okay, here's a real example of our process in action, and they'll pull examples out of that. So there's just a myriad ways. And that's why I commented earlier, if the only thing you're doing with your case studies is publishing them on some sad section of your website and hoping people stumble across them, you're literally sitting on a gold nugget and not doing anything about it. And that should frustrate you and excite you at the same time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't want to stop you at all. That was that was manna from heaven. No, you're absolutely right. And it all starts with performance. And obviously, you got to perform well for the clients, and giving them. We're in the micro evangelist, micro influencer era, and giving the mic, pun intended, to your customer and allowing them to speak. It connects to them. It gives them that bully pulpit. It gets them the stardom, the voice that sometimes they just don't have in their particular department or whatever, right? But it also gives them the ability to champion something and be able to raise their own brand at the same time they're giving accolades to you. And it's the gift that keeps on giving because it's authentic. It's natural. It demonstrates winning. It demonstrates that you were caring about their success, right? All of these things are exactly what customers are looking for whenever they're shopping around.
Yeah, I mean, and the goal of a case study is not to make the client look like a damsel in distress who was helpless without you. You're trying to make them the hero too. So, we talked a little bit earlier about as well, people kind of resist. They are doing you a favor by putting their neck out and putting their brand on it. But when you tell the story right, everybody comes away looking good. No one comes away looking like the idiot who needed help, or, they're smart for having chose you.
Exactly.
And you're shining the spotlight on the great work they've done.
I dig it. Joel, it's been fantastic to unpack this. I'm going to actually use this as a case study, man.
There we go.
This would be too cool. This would be another level of inception. We're going to use Case Buddy to do a case study on this case study show. How about that?
There we go.
All right. Hey, we always finish up our shows with asking a couple questions of our guests. What really bugs you about the industry that you're in right now?
Yeah, I think the thing that bugs me is just what we were just talking about, is that companies are still not, more and more are doing it, the smart companies are, but they're not prioritizing this type of structured storytelling. They're not tapping into the potential of something that they could be. It also really bugs me that those people who have the attitude of, well, case studies are easy. And the minute that someone tries to do it, they realize, all the value that comes from having someone step in and own that process and lead that process. I think, like I said, anyone thinks case studies are easy has never tried to do one. So it does bug me. We're like, well, we're just going to get a freelancer to go and do it. And I go, yeah, I'll see you in 6 months. I'm confident you're going to be coming back, because that person does not know what's coming down their way. So that can bother me.
There's so much structure that you have to use to get to get to the quality, and you can get yourself in a tailspin. I can say from personal experience is that I've had a devil of a time with my team over the years creating case studies and how we create it, and Tom can attest. We've had numbers of different ways to try to get to those, and one, it's also time consuming, and you're still serving your own customers, so it always kind of gets put to the back of the bus, so to speak. And I can see absolutely the business model that you're in. You're well oiled, and you can actually help out from an efficiency standpoint to get the job done. So it's awesome, man. So conversely, let me ask you this: what bugs you about your industry right now? Well, no. I just asked that. What excites you about your industry?
Yeah, I think what's exciting for me is there's so much opportunity. I mean, the opportunity itself is exciting, that people are realizing it is exciting. But what's exciting me right now is that for all the centuries that we've been telling stories, for all of the human history that we've been doing this, there's still always something to learn. There's always something you could do better. Like right now, I'm getting schooled on open loops and bringing those into cases, and that's a whole different talk for a whole different show. But I'm excited because there's just no end to. Whereas when I worked in SEO, I was like, there's no end to this. I can't keep doing this. With this, I'm excited because there's no end to the learning and just the sheer value that comes out of talking to people and getting good at talking to people and getting good at talking to customers. So I'm even, I'm in the thick of it, and I'm still seeing all the different ways that these are valuable and can be used, and how you can tell a story. And to me, that's really exciting, knowing that, hey, there is no finite ceiling on where these can go and how well you can do them. And there's always a chance to be better. And for me, that's really motivating.
Very good. Now, there is also the possibility of overusing a case study, right? So can you give us a final cautionary tale there?
Yeah, I mean, if every tweet is about your case study, or if you constantly bring it up in every conversation after they've heard it 10 times, I mean, you get the whole thing, the same thing you get where it's like, Grandpa, we've heard your story about the war. If you're fatiguing people with it, if they don't respond to the story, maybe the first 2 times they're exposed to it, it's probably not their story. It's probably not for them. So, don't be afraid to put it out there. But yeah, I mean, if you've only got one, it's probably time to diversify and get some other stories.
We need to milk this for every dime we can get out of it. All right. All kidding aside, the most important question here before we wrap up here is how in the world did you get attacked by hawks 3 times?
So the short version is I was in high school and was walking, and there's this big patch of green on the way there, and I'd driven past it like 1,000,000 times, and it was like spring in Calgary. So, the abominable snowman was hibernating and walking along. And the gist of it is that there was a territorial hawk. The first time I just didn't see it coming, got smacked in the back of the head with what felt like a plastic bag with claws, zigzagged my way, arms above my head, across the field to the only clump of trees. The second time, I was walking back and I thought, okay, I got attacked last time. I'm just going to walk on the other side of this green patch, which is it's a pretty big green patch. Like I was giving this bird the space. So I saw the bird on the telephone pole, walking, everything's good, everything's not good. So I'm standing with my backpack and a swing at this thing, miss, fall down, same thing, flail my arms, run in the nearest clump of trees. The third time, the hawk had a memory. It knew me. It knew I was coming back and that I dropped my guard. It was a year later. I was walking to meet a friend at a restaurant, just minding my own business, thinking about it. And I saw all these little birds, tiny little birds, fly past my feet out of a bush. And I just knew. I didn't even have to look. I'm like, there is 100% that darn bastard hawk behind me. Sure enough, there it was. Same thing, take off running. I don't walk there anymore. I move closer to it. I don't walk there. I see people playing with their kids on the playground. I'm like, there's nice knowing you. Like, you're just asking for it.
You should write a case study about that park for Ellie Paris there.
Post
it on a pole. The pole that the hawk sits on.
Exactly. A big banner with an arrow pointing up.
I've relented that territory to the hawk, and it lives there now, and I don't go there. I'm not scared of my neighbors, but I'm scared of that thing. So
As long as it's not following you away from that area, and you start seeing it in the corners of your eye, right?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Thanks a lot.
Joe, it's been fun. We really appreciate the knowledge bestowed upon us regarding case studies. It's truly a needed art form. It's truly a needed piece of content for any site, but it's also a needed exercise for companies to be able to learn about themselves, learn about how they've been able to affect other companies, and on top of that, just be able to improve what they do on a regular basis. So, I mean, it's almost a therapeutic exercise as well. Hey, Joel, can we promote anything for you on the show?
Yeah, I mean, the best place to connect with me is on Twitter at Joel Klettke, and I think right after this show, I'm going to go ahead and tweet our free guide. So if this is something that you are trying to get into, if this is something you want to be able to DIY, our guide is not just something you download and it says hire us. There's actual actionable stuff in there, a lot of stuff I've talked about on the show. So I will post a link to that, but I'd be thrilled to have some people get that and take these seriously, do them well, tell great stories. That would make me really happy.
No problem. So we're going to certainly put the link in the show notes as well as lift it up on our own social. Hey, last word for the individual that wants to start their case study. Give us the final word there.
Just do it. Just sit down, map out, where you're going, and the worst thing you can do is nothing. So don't worry about getting it perfect straight at the hop. We don't. But just start and be excited about talking to people and asking questions. Don't block your own shots and say, oh, they'll never take part. Oh, they'll never answer that. You'll surprise yourself when you start talking to people, how much you learn and how responsive people are when you go about it the right way. So.
I said one phrase. Come on. I said one thing. Excellent, Joel. And make sure you watch for hawks, right?
Okay.
Yeah. They're...
Yeah. All right. So you certainly want to follow Joel on his Twitter handle, Joel Klettke. That's Klettke. So certainly jump in and find him over at LinkedIn as well. So thanks so much for sharing our time with us today. It was fantastic. Tom, do we have poo yet?
No, my mom texted me to want to know what size shoes my daughter wears.
Okay. Well, let's keep us abreast of that too.
Yeah, let us know. It's
we
like
will inform you about the Tucker Poo conundrum next week on The Edge. Thanks for listening. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to Edge of the Web Radio. Special thank you to our colleagues here at Site Strategics, especially our guest, Joel Klettke. Be sure to check out all the must-see videos and audio over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Edge of the Web Radio. Hey, we're actually rolling out more new interview blogs on the site as well, unpacking a bit more insight from the show. So go check that out on a regular basis. So edgeofthewebradio.com, edgeofthewebradio.com. Who are we talking to next week?
So last show, we talked about machine learning and PPC. We're going to learn about machine learning and SEO with Brittany Moeller from Moz. So deep dive into that.
Very cool. That had me haunted for a little while after we talked about.
Wait till we learn about how it works in SEO.
Oh my gosh! Stay down. You got to tune. Thanks for everybody contributing into the stream. It was fantastic getting the questions from the live audience. We'll talk to you next week. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. Bye bye.